one of the projects that we're kind of working on at the minute is farming must have a net carbon footprint. We don't have one. And if there's going to be any justice in all of this transition, there must be a net carbon footprint. So the way it works, the whole world gets a net carbon footprint, right? So we say, these are the emissions, these are the removals. When we've balanced those out, we're not causing any damage to the atmosphere. We're not causing any changes up there. So humans are no longer doing anything to cause climate change. We're all good, right? That's the goal, the Paris Agreement goal, right? To stabilize that below a particular temperature rise. And then when it's broken down into countries, they also have net zero. You need to balance your emissions with your removals, because if all you countries do that, then we achieve the global net zero, right? That's what it's all about. And then they look at farming and they say, no net zero for you. None. Some of these removals we'll take out and we'll stick it in this category and we'll call it agriculture, or some of your emissions rather. We'll take it out and we'll call it agriculture, which is pretty much just livestock and fertilizer. And transport in some countries, including Ireland, agricultural transport. All right, that's emissions only. There's no removals counted in that. And then over here we have LULUCF, which is land use change, and forestry. And that's where you have like your peatland emissions and stuff, but you also have all of your removals. So when they talk about sectoral emissions reductions, no farmer is able to say, well, I'm here on a medium-sized farm. I have this many suckler cows. I have this much forestry. I have this much grassland. Here's my removals. Here's my emissions. Actually, I'm a couple of tons to the good.
Yeah, give me money for it too, maybe.
Well, maybe, but leave me alone.
Yeah.
Both. Instead, what they're doing is not only are you broken down by sector, but how it's actually working in terms of policy is the government is not really dictating in a really granular way to other sectors how, you know, various emissions reductions are going to take place. Now, obviously, they have policies and schemes, like, for example, they might say, well, here's a percentage reduction on the price of your electric car, or, you know, we'll reduce VRT, or there'll be solar grants for homeowners, or, you know, and obviously the taxpayer is probably funding the bulk, I would imagine, of our wind farms and our solar farms and what have you.
Yeah.
But they're not going into ESB looking at their day-to-day activities and saying, okay, we're going to bring in a specific initiative to cut the emissions of the number of times your workers boil the kettle in the kitchen every day. Like, it's not down at that kind of granular level, but it is for farmers. And so at a European level and at an Irish level, they're bringing in a number of initiatives to say, this particular emission here, we're going to reduce it in the following ways. And so where they used to sort of incentivize those things, now it's like, you're going to do it or we're going to take away your existing payments. So at the moment, you know, we have the nature restoration law, but we also have the GAIAC 2, which there's actually a meeting in Carrick-on-Shannon tonight at 7:30, I think, on that particular topic, but it's about reducing peatland emissions. Well, that policy was brought in at a time when the EPA's peatland emissions figures were 260% wrong. All of this policy is dictated. Yeah, and then again, you know, we join the nature restoration, and suddenly land that was categorized as good is now categorized as bad because all the definitions have changed. And are you watching this hand? Good, because you should have been watching this one. And the government are really, really invested in introducing all these little policy schemes and incentives and disincentives and punishments to get farmers to do what they need them to do, which is offset the emissions of the rest of the country and not really be rewarded for it. The only way to fix that is to say that each farm is entitled to a net carbon footprint. You're entitled to use your own removals first and foremost to balance your own emissions. And then what you have left over can be used by other sectors. What the government is saying instead is that farmers should be denied the right to a benefit from their own removals. And that other sectors should have the primary right to benefit from those. And so again, looking at it and you're like, it's nonsense. It's not even good nonsense. It's not compelling nonsense. It's not convincing nonsense, but I do know that you're telling me nonsense. And so at the same time, you want me to have faith in you. Do I think that governments have our best interests at heart? Not really, no. And do I think that there's, the rise of the hero on their hero's journey about to step in and change all of that? Not sure I believe in that either.
Mm.
And so for me, the only way we're going to get change is disruption.
Yeah.
You might hurt a bit, but so does everything. Like, how do you tell it's the right thing to do? Because it's not easy.
True. I guess we try to follow logic in our hearts to get through this
Mm.
and get back to proper values where it's not just all about whatever protecting the economy as an excuse to
Mm.